I'm Kara, and welcome to Soul Inspiring Business. I believe that all of us possess unique gifts and talents that allow us to serve the world and our own growth in the highest possible way. Our lives are an expression of our thoughts, beliefs, and actions. And here, we will explore businesses, thought leaders, and topics designed to inspire, helping propel your own growth so you can live your best and most purposeful life. Welcome to Soul Inspiring Business. Welcome back to the Soul Inspiring Business Podcast. I'm Kara Chaffin Donofrio, your host, and happy Valentine's Day. I'm recording this on Valentine's Day. This episode will go live either later today or tomorrow. And it's interesting. I had this whole plan for what I was going to talk about. And I think I decided I'm going to punt that because as I was walking in here to record, I really just got struck with some inspiration to talk to you about something a little bit more personal and in the spirit of Valentine's Day, actually, to talk about self-love and actually how I think that relates to entrepreneurship and business. And so I'm going to go a little personal today because I'm going to share with you a person I was. If you've seen these trends on social media right now, there's this trend of this reel, and it's where this person's talking to their younger self. And I don't know why. I think I've shared pieces of this story with you on the podcast before, but I feel sort of I guess the right word is inspired or compelled to share a little bit more about it, because I think that, this is a little bit of my own personal journey to self-healing and self-love. And for anyone that, you think what somebody looks like based on social media, I think it's just a lesson, and we can never make too many assumptions about what somebody's going through because you're just seeing the face that they want you to see, right? Not necessarily what's going on behind the scenes. And so I'll take you back just a little bit because I do think that that self-love and being whole in who you are, and this idea that I talked about last week of embodiment of coming into the fullest expression of who you're meant to be in the world in order to serve people at a high level. And I think that when I think about creating a soul inspiring business and what that means, and when I think about entrepreneurship and the responsibility really that we have as business owners, as people that are leading others, as also, people that are, I think if you are called to the path of entrepreneurship, then there's something in you that wants to, if you found the show, I would say, there's something in you that not only is called to, make a beautiful life for yourself and have freedom in your work, but also, there's typically some type of call, especially for people, again, that are called to this show and this work, that you're actually here for a deeper purpose, that you're not just here to fulfill your own mission, here on earth, but you're also here to serve others and to help people and create impact in the world. And just like the old saying goes, like, you can't help another if you can't, when you're on a plane and they tell you to give yourself your oxygen mask first in order to help another, it's the same analogy that I don't believe that you can make it as big an impact in the world if you are not first whole in your own self, if you are not first really living into that fullest expression of you. And so to do that, there's, and we've talked about varying ways of releasing distortions and releasing patterns that no longer serve you. And we had a great guest, Karen Chong, who was on, and she does this incredible frequency work where she's releasing distortions in order to sort of propel you into next level success. We've had Jen on, Jen Cudmore, who I love and adore. And she talks about, again, releasing some of the patterns that hold you back in order to step into the brilliance that you are. And so I think this idea of self love and really coming to a place where you can fully have more awareness over some of the patterns and the things that are existing in your life that you want to let go of. And how do you do that? Right. So I'm going to share with you again a personal story. I'll take you back. This is my personal, like looking at my younger self and what would I have told her? Well, for my, I guess, going back, I dealt with a lot of rejection in, um, adolescence. My parents had gotten divorced. It was, it wasn't, I had a lovely childhood in many ways, but there was also a lot of heartbreak, especially in that adolescence period. And so in that time with, my parents getting divorced and all of this, I think, and maybe even some generational patterns before that of like being unlovable. I had this story within that I was unlovable. And so I would create situations that fulfilled that prophecy, right? And so whether that was peers that, in high school, challenging relationships with friends, um, then fast forward to probably, I would say it was the biggest gift for me. It was also the hardest, most terrible relationship you could ever imagine at the end. And so, as the story goes, so I met this person. We were so in love. We, moved to California. And then things started going bad and south. And, I don't know who he is today, so I'm not going to make judgments. But at the time, I felt like he was extremely narcissistic. Um, and it was a very difficult relationship in which I'll just give you a few examples. He kind of made me feel like I was nothing. And part of that was, we had this whole, I was making really good money. I left my job for him. I moved out there and he was like, okay, the rent's due. And at first we talked about it and he had said he would pay for me until I found a job. And of course, then he changed his tune when I was out there. So like that was a small thing. Then we bought separate groceries and he was mad at me if I ate his waffles. I mean, it was like very, really a terrible, like, it's never a good thing when your dad puts you on the plane to go out there and says to you, if you want to come home, just let me know and I will send a plane ticket your way and I'll be the first one out to pack you and bring you back. So clearly everybody could see this relationship was not in a good place. And the worst of it was then fast forward, we, and there were a lot of different instances, but I'll just share one of the kind of like wake up moments for me. Actually, one of two. One was where I was in a cop car because he had been holding me down and then we'd moved back. We were back in the DC area and his roommates, I threw a lamp at him and his roommates called the cops. And this female cop is driving me home and she says, "Girl, what are you doing?" And I couldn't answer her. It was like this pattern that I was addicted to of this love-hate relationship. And it really stemmed from not having enough self-worth in my own self to say enough is enough. And so it was at that time that I started seeking out help, therapy. I went to Codependence Anonymous workshops. I went to therapy, group therapy, all those things to try to understand what was this pull? What was this thing within me that was seeking out, this drama, really. And then, interestingly enough, and this was sort of the final straw, but it's funny because there were so many final straws before that. You would think maybe the cop car being driven home would have been the final straw. But in fact, it was where it was actually Obama's inauguration and we were out. My birthday happens to fall on inauguration day. And so we were talking and he was supposed to take me away that weekend. And so we were out and, we were at the inauguration, and then we were, with friends afterwards. And I said, so are we still going on this trip? Because he had planned this trip. And he said, well, that depends. And I said, well, what depends? Like, what do you mean? What does it depend on? And he goes, well, that just depends on how you behave. Now, I can tell you, because it still makes my blood boil a little bit hearing those words, and it's hard. Or even now, it's so far from who I am today that it's like so fascinating to me that that's where I was at that time. But I will say that at that point, I had done enough work where I knew that, like, what the hell? You're going to tell me how I behave is going to determine whether you're going to take me on this trip or not? What does that even mean? Like, what's behaving well? And so I remember in that moment, I didn't say anything, actually. I was very quiet on the phone, and I just said, okay. And then we got off the phone. I immediately called his roommate and I said, he and I are done. I need to collect my things. And so please meet me. Like, we set a time. So I actually didn't say anything to him. I just, in my own mind, I knew it. I knew it instinctively. I knew that if there was a trip that I wasn't going to go on it. And I knew there wasn't a trip. So, and what was fascinating is that when I met him, his roommate, to pick up his things, this person ended up, I guess, with another woman the night before, and he brought her to the coffee shop because he knew that we were going to be there getting my things. So, that was, when I look back, I hope upon hope that I instill in my daughter enough self-love that she never has to experience something like this. But when I also look back, I think about, again, we talk about the universe speaks to you in whispers, and then it gets louder and louder and louder. And had I listened to the whispers, I would not have been probably the puddle on the floor that I was at that time in my life. Maybe I would have done more to maybe get some of this, like, self-help or therapy before getting to that point where I felt like my self-worth was literally a puddle on the floor. But also I look back and I actually have a lot of gratitude for the role that person played, interestingly enough, in showing me, like, putting a mirror to what was actually going on inside of me at that time. And I guess that's where I kind of want to get to in this conversation. So I wanted to give you some of the background, and this kind of craziness that unfolded at this time in my life, but also that those situations can be, or have the opportunity to be, the biggest growth patterns for you. And so the things that are probably the hardest are sometimes or are usually the things that teach us the most. And, I think I also share that because I would say, wherever you are in the journey, if there are places that feel off, if there are places that you think, well, this is, not really working great, but it's not bad. What are the things that you're avoiding? What might be the places that deserve a little bit more attention or awareness, to understand, that people show up in your life to teach you lessons and to allow you to grow. And again, did it have to go that bad? I don't think it had to, actually. I think that there were probably many times in the path, that he and I were both playing out, where I could have said, I'm going to step away from this now because this isn't where I need to be. But for some reason, I wasn't able to, and I had to learn the hard way. Had I listened to the whispers, I would have been a lot better off. And there were a lot of whispers. There were a lot of shouts. But again, I share that to say that no matter where you are now, and no matter what you're experiencing, those things don't have to define you, and they don't have to define your life. And there was this really beautiful story that I recently heard. And it was, it was actually, oh gosh, it was on a reel or an inspirational quote. And they were telling the story of two brothers. And the one brother is in jail, and he's been there. He's an addict. He's in jail. The other brother is this massively successful attorney and, just incredibly, insightful business person. And so the interviewer was, or the person relaying this was saying that he had asked the two brothers, what happened? Like, why did your life end up like this? And interestingly, the brother that was said, well, this happened of um, because my parents were divorced and I had an alcoholic father and I had, this and these circumstances happened to me in my life, right? So that was what the one brother that was in jail said. Interestingly, they went to this really successful business person and said, well, what happened to you? What do you think caused this incredible success that you've had? And he said, well, it was because I grew up in a home where my dad was an alcoholic and my parents got divorced and it was really difficult. And so that's actually what taught me the lessons that allowed me to go here, right? So what's fascinating about that is that both brothers, their success or their failure was from the exact same situation. It's just they didn't have different problems. They had different solutions. And when I was listening to this, I thought, wow, that's so good, right? You don't have different problems. You have different solutions. You have different ways of perceiving the same thing. How can some person, perceive something as so terrible? The other person perceives it as the growth trajectory that changed how they saw the world, right? And so everything really is about how can we take what we're experiencing? How can we take the problems, the challenges, the whatever it is that we're going through and find a way to what's the solution for that? How can you grow from that? What kind of things can you learn from that? And as we really tie it back to self-love, I think that there's so much that can be gained when we can really go inside and say, what are the things that are showing up for me right now? Where do I need to have better boundaries? Where do I need to let go of certain people maybe in my life? And not from a letting go with resentment, but letting go with love, wishing them well, but maybe realizing that they're not meant to grow with me in this journey any further, right? What are the places that you need to show up more for yourself so that you are giving yourself that oxygen mask so that you can in turn be a better leader, create more impact for others in the world by, again, being that best version, an embodied version of who you are. It's so interesting. During that time where I was having a really difficult time, I was talking to somebody and they said, Kara, you feel unloved, but you're surrounded by love. And I never forgot that because I came back to that a lot. And I thought, yeah, she's right. I'm just choosing not to see it. I'm choosing, to only want to feel love from this one person when they're not even deserving of that love. Right. And so it comes back to then saying, and protecting, and not even like protecting your heart, right? Like, not even that, but really deciding who and what energies are you going to allow into your world. And being very aware when you are stepping into a place that feels unsettling or, allowing maybe people in that might not really see you, love you, care for you, or have the absolute best intentions for you, you know? And I think that part of that is in discernment and awareness. And part of it is also, I think, as business owners, the other piece I would say is that, you know, in um in this leadership role, it can be a little lonely. I don't think it's necessarily meant for everyone. There will be certain personalities that don't really want to do it, and that's fine. Um, but know that when you're stepping out in your own path, when you're becoming more fully into this, highest expression of you, when you're deciding what things are meant and not meant for you, and you haven't done that before, the the road will change. We all have this path that we're moving on, but as you let go of certain distortion patterns, and as you rise up really in your frequency, and you rise up in your amount of um, self-love and realizing what you do and don't want in your life, there will be people and situations that will change and go away. And then the magic of that is there will be beauty and new friendships and new relationships that come in, because we weren't meant to stay in one place forever. And I think that, you know, the more and more we kind of come into this place of giving ourselves permission to have and to talk about, self-care and self-love. And it's part of it is the self-care piece, making sure that you have time to cultivate awareness of what it is that you do and don't want. Um, but then, even more than that, what are the situations and things that we can learn from right now? What are the patterns that we can see playing out in our lives? Do you have something that's a repeating pattern that maybe just needs to be looked at? And sometimes when you shine the light on that, the lightness begins to heal. Part of it is just shining the light on what's deep within, what needs to be addressed. And as you shine the light, then, you know, there will be people and situations that come up to help you release that. So, so on this Valentine's Day, again, I really think this particular topic, I thank you for listening and hearing me explain this a little bit more vulnerable piece or part of my story from a while back. But I think it's important for us all to have the courage to share with others that none of us are perfect. None of us are, we're all continuing to grow and learn. And I think that, again, as we step into the mission of creating bigger impact in the world, I don't believe that you're able to have as much potency, as much power, as much impact on others in a light-filled, beautiful way when you are not addressing, or when you are not filled with that own self-love, because there will be things that come in that sabotage, right? And so the lighter that you are, the more you're able, the more that you're filled with your own light, with your own love, with all that is amazing about you, the better leader that you're going to be, the more light you're going to be able to share with the world, and in turn, create a bigger impact. So, with that, I hope you have a wonderful Valentine's Day, whether you have a partner to share it with or you're sharing it with friends. Know that you are always loved by God because you are a child of God. Know that there is an endless amount of love all around you. And so instead of looking for the one to fulfill that, be the one for yourself. Lots of love and wishing you a beautiful day. Until next time. Loved being here with you today and would love to connect with you more over on Instagram. My handle is linked to the show notes, or you can just type in at Kara Chaffin Donofrio. And I have something special for you as a free gift, my dynamic life journal. This special book has the power to really help you live a soul-inspired life. Go to freegiftfromkara.com. Easy to remember, freegiftfromkara.com. Until next time, beautiful people, sending all my love.